This is just a quick video showing how you can take vegetable plants that grow up on their own from one year to the next and use them within your garden. So here we are on my front yard raised bed vegetable garden. The street is out there. There's some lawn, sorry to say that it's grass. Then I've got a clover patch, and then I've got this 50-foot fence with a 2-foot bump out from the fence, which is my raised bed filled with compost. And I have vegetables planted along that, and they trellis up the fence, etc. And over here I have a straw bale, which is how I first started gardening on the front lawn, by having a couple of straw bales and planting directly into those before I had any raised beds. Anyway, from last year, right in this spot, I had some wonderful cherry tomatoes. They were sweet 100 or something like that. And in this spot here, right between my raised bed and this year's straw bale, right in the crack in between, there is some straw there and maybe a bit of dirt or leaves or other things. And sure enough, what is growing in there but tomato plants? And one of the things I certainly encourage beginner gardeners, and I consider myself to be a beginner gardener, I've only been doing this about 2 years, to do is to start to recognize what plants look like what at any given stage, so that when they're just barely poking out of the ground, what do they look like, what's the leaf formation, all of that kind of thing, so that you can recognize these. And these are tomatoes that are growing, just from recognizing the appearance of them, the tomatoes that are growing in the space in between here. And I could just let them grow there, and that would be fine, except that that spot in between doesn't get any water other than occasional rain. So here you can see that I have my soaker hose set up, and it's watering the raised bed here, but it's not watering that space in between. So that space in between, those plants would do better if they got a regular source of water. And also, just right down below them is actually concrete sidewalk. So they may send a couple of roots out towards the clover lawn here, but a lot of them will just be over the concrete sidewalk, so it won't go very far. Therefore, what I have done is to dig up a spot here within my raised bed itself, close to the soaker hose and close to the fence in the back, so that the tomatoes will be able to trellis up the nylon lettuce, not lettuce, lattice or trellis here, so that the tomatoes will grow on up that, the height of that roughly 6-foot fence. So that is the idea on taking something that's left over from one year and either leave it in the spot where it was, as I've done with the parsley over here, as you can see, and it's already growing waist high. In fact, it's looking like it might go to seed soon. Versus here just taking it from one place where it happened to grow from one year to the next and popping it in a spot where you would actually use it. So if you think about it, some people would go out and buy their plant starts, their tomato starts, and if they were, in fact, I have bought tomato starts at times, that wouldn't be really any much bigger than that. But here I have provided for me, my own, as in leftovers from last year that grew on their own. So things I didn't even have to take the time to plant them, etc., harden them off, anything. It just here they are. So don't look a gift horse in the mouth. If you've got a plant that you like and that shows up, and we know that it grows well here because they did terrific here last year. So this would be an opportunity to just move it. One other reason to move it, and I have some way down the length here of my fence that are other tomato plants, and probably a different variety of tomatoes because I grew different tomatoes down on this side. So I just came from over by the driveway there. I've walked roughly the length of the 50-foot fence, and here are more tomato plants, and again they're looking great, but they're right down here, close to where I have my peppers, and they're a little far out, and they're close to the cucumbers, and cucumbers have kind of sharp spiny vines, so if those are intermingled in with tomatoes, especially if they're those small cherry or grape-sized tomatoes that you're going to be harvesting a lot, then you're going to be reaching your hands through sharp, prickly cucumber in order to, vines in order to get at your tomatoes. So this would be another one that potentially I may move to a spot where it's doing, where it's going to have a little better chance to grow, or that's a little more convenient or easy for me as the gardener. And if you look at this, I mean, this plant is already over a foot tall, and again, one that I didn't plant. If you were buying that at a plant store, you'd pay a couple of dollars for that, as a start. So again, just the idea, if you see plants from one year to the next, growing up, keeping a track of what you were growing where can be helpful. Keeping, pictures or looking online for what does a given plant look like at a given time, so that you can learn how to recognize the appearance of peppers versus cucumbers versus, cantaloupe, versus tomatoes, etc. Then that can be really helpful for you. Okay, that's all for now. Happy gardening.